Thank you, Heavenly Father. Thank you for the day. Thank you for being with us since we last met, my Father. And thank you for the program that we have lined up today. I want to commit your daughter into your hands, Father. And also those of us who will be listening, give us listening ears and also let us understand what she is presenting, my Father. Because you say that water is life, so we are all eagerly awaiting her presentation. Thank you for every opportunity. Forgive us our sins, be with us now and forevermore. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Rosemary. Karibuni, everybody. Thank you to all ladies for joining us and being here today for this special our monthly education day. Today we have Elizabeth Diego with us. Elizabeth is one of our own. And Elizabeth, you'll go ahead and introduce yourself fully. She's an expert in her field where she's going to be presenting for us today. So thank you for coming and thank you for being with us. It's all yours, Karibuni. And thanks, Elizabeth. You can go ahead.
Thank you very much. Can you see the screen?
No.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
You can. But I can't see it on my side. What page are you at?
Yes.
We can see. So you're not sharing any page presentation, you're just sharing the Zoom.
Oh, sorry, because I have the presentation on my screen. Let's see. My sister, I'm sure, is saying all the Hail Marys. Can you see now?
There it is.
We can.
All right. So I can start. We're all together now.
Yes. You're welcome. You're welcome to start.
Sure,
Yeah,
all
go
right.
ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Elizabeth. The middle one is Akinyi, and then my father's name is Diego. Today, I'm honored to share with you. Basically, it's a very brief, full of pictures and just experiences in water resources in Kenya. But most important, when I finish, I hope that probably each of the 17 people, including Dr. Caro, can share, but also would go back to their community and just ask themselves, what is it that you can give back to your community in terms of water resources? So thank you very much. Currently, officially, I work for the government in a water resources authority, which is an agent of the main government under the Ministry of Water. Practically, we say they own all the water resources in Kenya, and therefore it's very basic. What we do as an authority is that we allocate water. So moving on, can you see the second screen?
History of water sector reforms in Kenya.
Okay, fine. So just a little bit of background that we should all be aware of. In Kenya, we have been managing water since pre-colonial days. And so when the colonialists came and we were almost getting the independence, we had a Water Act, Cap 372, that was basically introduced in 19...
Lost you, unless it's my side.
We don't have your sound, Elizabeth.
Oops.
'52 that set up to
Elizabeth,
water-related services.
Wait.
Then in 1999, we had the first national water policy on water resource management. And that was with the view of how do we manage water resources as a country. And so there's a sessional paper that was introduced to review the Water Act Cap 372. So ideally, the Water Act Cap 372 was talking about the large farmers, the large abstractors. Services was more pronounced other than water resources. Then the best came in 2002, where we had the minister, Martha Karua. We enacted the Water Act 2002, which was very distinct, separating the water services and water resources. So basically, when we talk about water services, is what you get in your tap from a pipe. When we talk about water resources, is where we get water from, in terms of, is it a river, is it ground, or is it surface? So it's either flowing on a river or it's ground water that you have to drill. And then remember, as Kenyans, in 2010, we had a constitution, and therefore we needed to review what the Water Act 2002 entailed. And so there was now currently a Water Act 2016. So the Water Act 2016 again separates the services and the resources, but key in point, it talks about how does the national government and the 47 county governments undertake their water resources and their water services. So basically, when you're abstracting water from a main source, it means you're dealing with the water resources. As it goes to the pipe and into the tap, it's water service. Do we have any questions, clarifications up to that point? Anybody can raise their hand.
You cannot see your screen share if you're still sharing the screen.
Oops, okay. But can you hear?
Yes, we can hear. And Pamela has her hands up.
Okay, Pamela, go ahead. Pamela?
Can you hear
Can
me?
you? Yes,
Yeah, I was experiencing the same thing, but it's back now.
it's back now. So which slide are
Yeah.
we on? I think from my side, I can't see it.
Well, the history of water section reforms in Kenya.
Oh, yes. So I have actually just completed that, so I can move to the next.
Right, okay. Yeah,
Can
okay,
you
thank
see it
you.
now?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
All right, fine. Thank you. So feel free to interrupt anytime you feel I am moving too fast. So the Water Act 2016 basically gives you institutions of who does what and where as a government. So usually it's sort of a bottom-up, top-down approach. So you've got several institutions in government that work in the water sector, but again, you have the community groups. So in terms of water services, you have at the top, you have National Water and Storage Authority. These are the guys, the institution that does big dams to harvest water. And then we have Water Tribunal. Should there be any conflict in water, then the tribunal takes charge in terms of managing the conflicts. And then you have the Water Sector Trust Fund. So the Water Sector Trust Fund is an institution that is a fund for all the development partners. Talk about World Bank, Denmark, all the development partners who want to invest in Kenya in the water sector. That's the basket where they have the funding. But for all the funding that is given to Kenya through the Water Sector Trust Fund, the government, which ideally is the taxpayers, also contribute a 15% of every financing. So all the water sector institutions are under the Ministry of Water, Sanitation, and recently irrigation. So you have the ones who deal with the water resources, which we have the Water Resources Authority, where I work. And then under that, you're supposed to have at the basin levels, which are probably the region levels. If you remember what used to be the regional areas, which have several counties in them, you have what you call basin water resource committees. Since 2016, they have not been established, and we're still hoping they'll be established. And then the best is that we have community groups across the country who are called Water Resource Users Associations. So that takes care of the resource. And then when you go to the water services, you have Water Service Regulatory Board that regulates all the piped water And then you have the waterworks development agencies. The institution, there are about 6. They have major infrastructure works that they hand over to the water service providers and who are also in the counties. So sometimes when you talk about we don't have water, it's because those water service providers have not been able to bring water into your taps. So for example, in Nairobi, the water service provider is the Nairobi Water and Sanitation Company that is ideally under the county. So all the water services was devolved into the counties, but the water resources remains a national government function. Are you able to see my next slide?
Yes.
Yes. So now I'm going to narrow down on water resources. So we have Water Resource Authority, where I work, and basically my role is to translate the big science into very simple language for communities to implement. So under the Water Resources Authority, it regulates the management and use of water resources. And that's the ideal where they talk about Water Resources Authority owning all the water resources in Kenya. So from the Water Act, it has very distinct mandates. One is to formulate and enforce standards, procedures, and regulations for the management and use of water resources and flood mitigation. It means that they're taking care of all the surface water, the groundwater, its water quality, and also flood mitigation. When you talk about flood mitigation, I know people will be asking about Nyando, the flooding in Nyando and Lower Guta and other areas. So basically, we monitor water, we collect data from the rivers, and we work with Kenya Meteorological Department to show forecast and then give flood advisories. So the flood advisory is part of flood mitigation. So we don't construct major dikes that goes to the national water harvesting, but we do the flood mitigation through flood advisories. So usually we work with communities to help them manage during floods, so move to higher grounds. So we give flood alerts just before the floods occur based on data collected. So you'll be told at the Ahero Bridge, for those of you who have passed Ahero, we have a station that monitors floods. So as the water level rises on the river, our CEO will issue an alert based on data and say probably this week the flood levels are going to be these heights, and at Ahero Bridge is going to flood at certain times. So then the other agencies, together with the county, support communities to move into higher grounds. And then we do water allocation. So the water allocation is done through what you call a permit. And this is where we have, if you're abstracting water from the river using mechanical means. Mechanical means a pump. That means you need to pay for the water. But if you're drawing water from the river using a bucket, you don't have to pay for the water because you're not taking a lot of the water. But if you have dug a well and you're drawing water with a bucket from that well, you won't pay for the water. But if you have dug a well and you're pumping the water into storage for use and pumping it elsewhere, that means you will need a permit to abstract. While you need a permit, while you're abstracting water, you also need a measuring device. So we are moving into smart metering. And so you install a meter to show what quantity you are abstracting. Again, this is now, we are at a better place now because if you go into eCitizen, you're able to apply for a permit. So that's a subject for a different time, but just basically that's what we do. Also, we undertake riparian reserve. So what we do is that we demarcate riparian areas. To what extent should you undertake activities near a water course or a water source? So if your farm goes into a river, then there are some activities that you cannot undertake just near the river. For example, you can't build a toilet near the river, and you also can't build a permanent structure near the river. Of course, the question is how many Kenyans have built near the river? There are so many. So it comes up to compliance and enforcement. Is the authority able to comply, to enforce compliance across Kenya? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It becomes very complicated. Sometimes you give orders for no construction. 3 days later, they've already constructed. So that's what happens. But you are required to undertake very subtle activities that encourage groundwater infiltration to be able to have water on the river throughout. Again, the key important function that the authority deals with is community engagement. So we have offices across the country, and these offices across the country basically works with the science in the water sector, but also with the communities. So we have delineated communities across the country, and now we support them in terms of water resource management. So they undertake activities such as spring protection, they do tree planting, they observe riparian marking and pegging, where they do very good conservations, and also undertake livelihoods across. Again, we have offices across the country, but they're based on drainage basins. So just on a layman, we cover all the major rivers. So you'll have Ewasonyiro North River that covers Mandera from Nanyuki, and then you have Rift Valley that comes all the way from Naivasha to Turkana. Then Lake Victoria is divided into two. There's the Lake Victoria North that is more of western side, and then the Lake Victoria South, which is more of the Nyanza side. And then you have Athi that comes from Kiambu all the way to Indian Ocean. And then you have Tana Basin. Tana Basin basically is from Moranga all the way to Garissa, down as it goes to the ocean. And then we have I think I talked about all the 6 of them. Tana, Ewasonyiro, then Lake Victoria South, Rift Valley, Athi, and Ewasonyiro North. So basically, we cut across the whole country, taking care of the water resources. So ideally, why do we do the water resources? Can you see my next slide? All right. If I'm too fast, please stop me. If you can raise your hand, let me know. So we look at all the water resources in terms of river, and we look at all the activities that happen within a catchment or within a basin. So basically, we recognize that there's a lot of competing water demands, and there's a lot of water-related conflicts, and all these things have to be managed. So you have different stakeholders within a basin or a catchment area that undertake a lot of things along the river. They have industries, and these days we feel like everybody is building and putting cabros, and we are losing grass. So when it's dry, it's dry. Even the boreholes that used to be drilled in Nairobi at 200, now they're going deeper, up to 400, up to 350. So all this is because now we are no longer doing what we used to do before in terms of nature, and we are blocking all the waterways. And we see a lot of flooding in urban areas because the riparian has been encroached, and it's very difficult. I think the last flooding we had in Nairobi, we had riparian conservation on Nairobi, Madare rivers, and it was such a hard task. Now there's a Nairobi River Commission, which is trying to conserve rivers across Nairobi. And it's work in progress. It's never enough. I think during Michuki's time, it worked quite a bit, and now it's still work in progress. So from the diagram, it's basically just water is life, and how do we sustain development with all the competing needs within the basin. So that's why you sort of have a prefect who is the Water Resources Authority. That's why you need to get permit to abstract water, and so that the authority also needs to know how much you're abstracting to be able to advise and inform various developments. So as you abstract water, my next slide, can you see it?
Yes, we can see
Someone
it.
read for me the heading of the next slide.
It's
Permit.
permit classification categories A, B, C, and D.
Oh, perfect. So ideally, we have permit classifications of water use. So this means that category A is basically you're drawing water from a river using a bucket, as I talked about it, or you're drawing water from a shallow well using a bucket. So that's basically you just need an approval because of data for us to collect data. but there's no charge for it. As you go to category B, you're probably using water for other activities, but mechanized, means you have put a pump and you're drawing water. So that category B and C, it goes up to the basin level. So we have sub-basin officers at grassroots level, and then basin officers at basin level, and then we have the headquarter. So category B and C water, it depends on the quantity of water you are abstracting per day, but also you're using mechanized works. It means you probably have a borehole with a pump, and therefore you need a permit. So a permit is an authority for you to abstract water and use. So they'll allocate you water and charge you for the water use. Why do they
Elizabeth,
charge for water use? Yes?
I'm not, if you just, Mary Omolo has her hand up, so whenever you're ready to take
All
her
right, so she
question.
can go ahead. Sorry, I can't see the other screen. Yeah, she can go ahead. Mary, please go
Sorry.
ahead.
No, I didn't raise my hand to talk. I'm just trying to get you live. Is it recording or I can see you? I'm
I
sorry,
think
I've
it's
raised my hand,
recording.
but I didn't mean it. I didn't mean to do that. I'm trying to find you people.
No problem. We found you.
Okay, you find me. Because
Yeah, thanks.
I've been trying, but I can't get through.
No problem.
Okay.
Thank you. So I was talking about the permit categories. So for category A is probably just in a homestead drawing water, but category B and C, you have to get a permit. Why do you have to get a permit? Because, for example, if you have a borehole and you don't have a permit, and then your neighbor comes and drills a borehole and has a permit, and your borehole dries, there's nothing that they will do. You will have lost your whole investment. So the first thing is for you to get a permit to draw water. So we have different types of water use, and for when the water rights staff are allocating water, or the technical staff are allocating water, the first and most important is that they allocate water for domestic use. So domestic, public, and livestock. Public is basically that bulk water that comes into your tap. It's what you use. That it's a must, that it's a priority that must be allocated. And then you have hydropower generation. This is basically in Tana, along, they have several dams. But in Nyanza, I think some of us have seen the Sondu Miriu hydropower. So that amount is so different from what you have from the domestic and public. So domestic and public is charged at 5 shillings per cubic meter. Who can tell me what a cubic meter means in terms of liters? Dr. Carol, cubic meter. I'll come back to the question. So it's just 5 shillings per 1,000 liters. And then we have hydropower that they don't charge, and then you have irrigation. Yes.
Hello, can you hear me? 10,
Yes,
10
Dr. Go
centimeter
ahead.
10 centimeter by 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter, 1,000 cubic. 1
Yes,
liter.
so it's just
Cubic
1,000
centimeter, 1
liters.
liter. Yeah.
It used to be 50 cents, and then now it was raised to 5 shillings. And the same cubic meter is charged, you pay for it when it comes to your tap at 100 shillings. So we were only charging 50 cents, and then we raised it to 5 shillings. And last April, there was a court order to stop the 5 shillings. And now it's work in progress to have it reviewed to 2 shillings and 50 cents. So it's ideally you're paying for 2 shillings and 50 cents of 1,000 liters of water. It's basically minimum. And then there's fish farming. Fish farming is proposed at 1 shilling per cubic meter. Remember, fish farming is for commercial. So in your business plan, you probably know how much money you're going to make, but how much water you're going to abstract and how much effluent in it you're going to discharge. So this is just to deter you from carelessly using water. Again, the integrated water resource management principles, the IWRM principles, economic use of water. You basically need to pay for water to be able to conserve the environment, but also to be able to collect data and use the data for informed decision in terms of development. And then there's effluent discharge. So this is usually mostly for the water services and industries in terms of how much effluent are you discharging, and therefore there's an amount of money to be charged. The next slide is basically just water demand in terms of all the 6 basins, and it's in terms of domestic, industrial, irrigation, livestock, fisheries, and wildlife. So basically, there was what we did in terms of Kenya as a country. We have what you call a water master plan, and it calculates what water demand we have, what water demand is there for the different users, and how much is needed. So the water available and the water demand is still not at par. So that's why we need a lot of conservation efforts to be able to match. And in respect to climate change, this is challenging because of late we even see rivers that used to flow. These days they're drying. Can you see my next slide?
Yes, we can.
All right. So basically, what all that science I've been talking about, it's more to do with water resource allocation. So you cannot allocate what you don't have. So when they allocate water, they make sure that usually we demonstrate it with a drum. And this is for basic principle in terms of equity, reliability, socioeconomic development, and environmental conservation. So before you're allocated water that you're going to pay for, first there has to be various needs that they look at. There's the ecological need. There's what you must leave in the river for the animals of the river to be taken care of. And then there's the basic needs that everybody uses water. And then there's the international obligation and interbasin transfers. For example, in Nairobi now, there's going to be water from Oranga. They call it the Northern Water Collector Tunnel. So we are transferring water from Tana Basin into Athi Basin. And so the people within Tana must get water, and the people in Nairobi City also have to get the water. So ideally, that's just the basis of how do you allocate water if it's in a assuming that's the source. So you must leave others for what nature deserves, and then you allocate according to need. Remember, the priority is for the basic human consumption. So basically, that brings me to the end of all the jargons, and next it's just going to be pictorial on what the conversations we've been having before. Can you see my next slide?
Yes, we can.
Yes. So basically, we work with the communities to collect data. So I think on my left, it would be on your right. On the far left, you see something like a ruler that has a series of three series into the river. Can you see that? On the left, the white ruler, the white bar that looks like a ruler.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so that's how we collect data. So we have hydrologists and we work with the communities. The community groups are called Water Resources Users Associations. So basically, this is a river Tana, which this monitoring station is near someone's homestead. So he is assigned to collect data in terms of water levels in the morning and water levels in the evening. So as they collect data, they put it in a form, and then the technical officer only comes to do check reading. And then there's the middle part that looks like a lake. I think that's Lake Jipe, which is a transboundary lake in Savo, somewhere in Taveta. And that's a water level where the men are standing.
Yes,
And basically, they collect the data in the morning and in the evening. So that's very manual. So if you look at, there's a house on the top, I think on your side it will be left, on my side it's right, and there's something below it. So we are moving from the manual data collection into telemetry. Telemetry means that you're installing sensors, and Dr. Carol works in a research institute that really supports the authority into modernizing and automating the data collection, so that as we collect data, we're able to know what to allocate, we're able to give flood advisory warnings, and we're also able to know the quality of water. And then on my next slide is just a basic example. On the man sitting on a stool is siting a borehole. So if you want to do a borehole, first and foremost, you have to get a professional to undertake a study. They call it hydrogeological assessment. So you're assessing, is it possible that you're going to get water? And when you get water, at what depth are you going to get? Who is your neighbor? Are there any other boreholes around there? And this is the Kenyans. It's always such a thorny issue because sometimes you get a quack. Sorry, someone is asking for the slideshow. Is it okay now?
Yeah, we can see it, Elizabeth,
Okay.
but there's also a question in regards to what you're speaking about. There's a question on the app, on the
Yes.
chat. Rosemary is asking, why charge me for water from my borehole, yet I paid for the whole thing myself? So you can also address that in the
Okay.
same.
So why charge you for your borehole? You will need to know what you're using for other people to also use the same water. For example, you're only being charged to be able to support the undertakings of the data collection and informing others. Because remember, water is shared by everyone. So if you abstract water and you're not charged, and we don't know what you're abstracting, the amount of water, after some time when it dries, we don't know how many aquifers, how deep you went, and how many aquifers it would be. And in the Spirit of Water Act, it's the economic use of water. That's basically why we charge you for water, even though you're the one who has installed it. And Rosemary, it's very minimal charge. If you can afford a borehole, because it's the same as paying the water service, paying for the water in your tap. Unless there's somewhere in the world that water is free. I'm not sure. So that's the main reason. So I was talking about the assessment. So you must get a professional to do the assessment. Usually these professionals are licensed, and they have every year they list them under the Ministry of Water and Irrigation. So you go to the website and get a credible expert. We also have them at the authority of colleagues who do the assessment, and then they give a report. So once that assessment is done, and then you get a contractor, as you can see on my bottom left, which could be your bottom right, that's a rig. Now, after the assessment, now you know how much water you're going to get. You get a professional to drill the borehole. So that's an ongoing, a borehole being drilled. And then afterwards, they do what you call a cap, but it depends. So for us, we do some exploratory boreholes to ascertain how much groundwater we have, what is the status of those aquifers for data collection. And then you, after the drilling, you can you can collect data. That's bottom right. Bottom right could be your bottom left. But if you're drilling a borehole for domestic irrigation or whatever use you have, I'm assuming after the assessment, you lodge in your documents into eCitizen to be able to be given an authorization to drill. Afterwards, you'll be given a permit to use water. So the permit shows you the amount of water you need to use, and it gives you the conditions for using the water. For example, you can have alternative storage, so that during rainy season, you can harvest water and have what you call a 90-day storage, so that you don't stress already the storage you have. Drilling boreholes depend on what your needs are, what your business plan is, but Usually, professionally, they say sometimes you're better off just harvesting the rainwater you have within your area if it's not a water scarce place to be able to use it other than drilling a borehole.
There's another
Uh,
question from there's
yes,
another question from Eva too. She's
yes.
asking, are the borehole charges one time or monthly?
No, we only charge for what you use. So our billing system is quarterly. But you'll have collected the meter reading of what you have used. But there's some boreholes that are used by water service providers. So the water service providers either get water from the river or water from the borehole. So them now it depends on the estate you are in that they probably would charge monthly. So what the authority does, the authority only collects money from bulk users and individual borehole owners who use water for commercial purposes or have pumps in their borehole. I hope that's clear, Eva. I'm moving on to the next slide. I think I have 12 minutes to go. So basically, can you see the screen?
Yes, we can still see the guy sitting on the stool.
Oh, I have moved. I don't know why it's not moving on your side. There's a map. Can you see the map?
There,
No.
now we see it. Now we see it.
Now you see it. Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
So ideally, looking at the map, you have the 6 basin areas and you have all those community groups, all those small poches are community groups that are supposed to either be formed to undertake water resources activities or are already established. So once you identify a river, so far all those small groups are 1,271 as optimum, but we have so far 760 formed across. So from Mandera, Siaya, across the country, you have representation of community groups undertaking water resources activities. So these community groups, it's very basic. They come together at an arm of a river. They take care of the upstream, midstream, and downstream. Their work is very basic. After they are formed, what happens is that they are registered as an association with the government, with the Attorney General's office. They file returns and then they undertake activities. So the authority supports them together with other partners to do what you call a subcatchment management plan. What are the water resources issues in their area in terms of surface and groundwater and water pollution, and how do they conserve the environment? The membership is voluntary, therefore not many people are happy to be in it, but it has worked very well in many places because the government facilitates part of them, and we also have partners coming in to facilitate. So what happens from the subcatchment management plan, they talk about all the issues in terms of water resources, and then they have activities. So the government funds them directly into their accounts. So to do the plan, it's about 2 million they're given, and then to start undertaking activities, there's 5 million, and then there's 10 million, and then it's up to 50 million. So what they do with the money is very basic. They will protect springs that are within their catchment areas. They will plant trees, and then they will have livelihood activities. So across the country, the sometimes funds are available just for specific places, but there are very many partners across, including the county government, that supports the activities of the communities. And it's been quite a journey. I think we've spent probably over 5 billion for it, but it's only one community that mismanaged the funds, which was about 5.7 million, a drop in the ocean. And that was in Lodwar in Turkana. But ideally, giving the community money directly into the account of the group has worked very well because they're answerable to the community members themselves. And all the activities that are financed must be in a public place. So if it's tanks, it's taken to a school, or for the elderly. If it's a spring, it's for community use. And if it's a spring being conserved, the people drawing water from the spring are not charged. It's community, it's free because it's not mechanized. They don't do boreholes because boreholes is a service when it comes to community groups. So they basically focus more on protecting the resource. They're also supposed to take care of the wetlands. If there are any wetlands that have been degraded, they support in terms of conserving the wetlands. And from there, they also draw their livelihoods. So in Kenya, it's very basic. If you have a forested area that is gazetted, you have community groups called community forest associations that are also financed directly by government and other partners. And then out of the forest, you have these ones called water resource users associations that are also financed directly by government and other partners. Can you see my next slide?
Not yet quite. We're still seeing the map.
Okay, so I think I have to go back and then come back in.
There you go. Perfect.
Oops. Okay, I think I have to go back. So yeah, so I'm privileged to have Dr. Kara. Apparently, Dr. Kara is a very good mentor of mine here. She's a Jowes lady, and she comes from this area where we are seeing. So this is somewhere in the different places. There's what the people in the northeastern go through, north and northeastern. So on my far left is somewhere called Loisukut. It's like Kipia County, but the farthest end. So Mount Kenya is at the top, and these are the downstream area. Ideally, these people don't get water. It rains probably once in a year, or some years they don't see any rain. And so they dig sand to get water. And then in the middle is somewhere in Sericho, and these are Kenyans. They take many hours to dig in to get during drought to get the water. On the right are, I think this is Turkana. So they also dig the sand after some time to get the water. And these are actually the actual status we have in Kenya currently. And then we have Chalbi Desert on the bottom that has rocks, and then there's sand. But the irony is on the bottom, you can see all those camels are actually within the Chalbi Desert. And then on the right, I think there's some dry bones over there. That's just after drought, when livestock, when you always watch news that the livestock are dead, they usually bring the carcass into the road. So it just dries. And basically, these are communities who have no other option for water. So what they're digging, they will drink it, and they will also use it for their livestock. And in northeastern and northeastern, northern part of Kenya and the northeastern, the Turkana and the Manderas and the Wajirs, priority is given basically by the communities to their livestock, and then men, and then the women. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we're still seeing the dry, the one you were
Oh,
showing with the dry.
sorry. So I think I need to go back.
Now it's 15. Now we get you put it back to 14. Now it's 13.
Okay. It's 13. So you can see.
Yeah.
So the beauty of all this is that there's always something beautiful in everything. So there's the desert, but you can imagine they still have the livestock, and there's always an oasis within the desert, and you can see the bull. So this is a challenge to us in probably in Nyanza or back home. We are never this dry. Even if it's dry, it's not this dry. But they still have their livestock that they are capable of managing. So the community groups basically protect these water sources. So you can see there are 1,000 camels or 1,000 goats coming. So they take turns. They don't drink the water every day, and they take turns. You can see on the top left or top right, that's, I think the temperature is 40. So even the cows are looking for the nearest tree shade, but they still don't sell the cows because culturally that's really a big deal of them. And sometimes they say if 5 or 10 cows die out of 1,000, they can still keep their 1,000. So in efforts in terms of water resources, especially on conservation, it's more on those community groups in that map coming together to see what other alternatives would they take care of within their catchments to be able to get water?
Okay, we have two questions on the page.
Yeah, go ahead.
It says water is getting scarce as the rains become more irregular. Does this affect the water basin's quantity and availability and drilling capacity? And then from individual to community level, what can one do? Plant trees, need water to establish. It's a catch-22. And then Damaris is also asking, is there a website where people can go to see rates applicable? Also, is there a law, Act kama iye yetu ya CAP 490 that governs water management in Kenya? Those are the two
All right.
questions that we have. Mhm.
All right, thanks for that. So yes, basically in terms of even the data, I want to display the data. It shows that we have a lot of demand for water and then there's little water. But focusing on climate change, yes, some rivers that never used to dry before are drying. Again, you can imagine before we just had the national government and then the provinces. Right now, what has happened is that we have 47 county governments. So those 47 county governments have offices, and I think it's our Kenyan thing. We have to build a big house and then we have to put cabro. So everybody is drawing from what was there before, and people are even encroaching water courses to build and encroaching the wetlands which used to serve us before. So apart from climate change, I think we as Kenyans are also just badly behave. Yes, Damaris, there's what you call water resources regulation that uses it has the conditions that you must enforce. Now, the water resources has very little funding, so the enforcement is not across board because you also have very limited resource and limited staff. But not to say enforcement is a continuous process, and I think now the government has what you call a water police unit that is basically helping in terms of enforcing abstractions and illegal abstractions. I think we have a lot of illegal abstractions that are making the water scarce amongst us. In recognizing the water scarcity and at individual level, I think you just go back home and there's so many youths. We have like 70% of Kenyans are youth, and most of them who are also members of the Water Resource Users Association undertake little conservation activities that build up more. For example, there's probably a spring that used to be there back home that used to serve many people. And over time, you don't see anything. So first is to ascertain if there's a plan already in place and if you can mobilize resources just to protect that spring, plant good trees around it, or also usually during rainy seasons, we have a lot of programs that issue tree seedlings. But now we want to blend not only tree seedlings, but also fruit seedlings. And I've seen activities like beekeeping work across Kenya. If you have groups that can undertake beekeeping is good because bees only take clean water and they must be in a forested place. So with time, you'll have the community members actually planting more flowers, planting more fruit trees to be able to support the bees. In terms of river water, sometimes most rivers are polluted. So the alternative sources is basically harvesting rainwater. So back to everyone who's attending the meeting today. Back home, do we have grandparents and grandmothers that have a roof over their head? And you can get gutters for them and get tanks. And Jowes has I think we have leveraged on poly tanks and something else that we can get loans and take tanks home. And people have really been encouraged, and people have been taking loans, or some just purchasing the tanks to be able to support communities back home to have water, to harvest water. So Damaris and who else asked the question? Does that answer you?
Yes, for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So a case in point is, can you see my screen?
Yes, it changed.
Okay, it changed. Yeah, sorry.
Mhm.
So I was just showing you. So we have seasons. So we have seasons of lots of water during flooding, lots and lots of water. You'll see in the news, livestock was carried away, houses destroyed, some people died. And then we have reverse, just dry periods, animals are dying, the rivers are dry, and there's a lot of conflict. So those are two extremes. But then the question is, can we harvest this water in our little ways to be able to use it during the dry seasons? So that's generally the landscape of Kenya that we have now. Periods of very plenty, which leads to flood, and then scarce, which leads to drought. And then a good case in point is my next slide is Mwache. So when the government does big dams, so there's a Mwache dam that is going to be for irrigation and supply. And then there's what the communities do. So there's a group of people who have come from probably 7 countries to see how Kenya is doing water resources activities together with its communities. And this place was basically dry. And if you look at it, there's a fence with brown water. It's brown water. But you can't believe it. It's the source of water in the whole area, and everybody wants it, and everybody is using it. You can see it's brown, but to them, sometimes it's not about quality, but it's to get the water. If you look at the landscape, the land is practically bare. But on the left side, these communities came together and they had seed money from the government, and these trees are 3 years old. So we are starting to see the area changing. So it's going to be probably a 7-year program where they do plant trees so that by the time the dam is up and running, there's reduced silt into the dam, and that will take care of the lifespan of the dam. So it's possible to plant trees and change the area where you come from. You can see my next slide.
So we have a question on Facebook.
Yes.
So Mary's asking, I have a borehole in my school. How can it be helped to be able to supply my community?
All right. So I will give Mary my number, and then I can get the details of the school and which place to get to her. Is that okay?
Okay.
Yes. So you can give her my number 0722 733 976. So can you see my next slide?
Yes, we can. It's slide 17.
Yes. All right. Thank you. So what can you see?
Is drinking water?
Class is about to
It says
end. What can you see?
interventions. It says
Yes.
interventions.
And
And
the
then
picture?
it's like a cow, like cows.
Yes.
One dead, one.
Yeah. So before the interventions, you see the cows come and they've put a mud cattle trough on the side, and they dig deep. They can dig deep for 12 hours to get water. And then, so what the government supports the communities with is to get a decent cattle trough, because this is practically where the communities really value their animals. So the cattle trough helps them because you'll have done a water pan, and then you do a cattle trough for the livestock to get water, but also for human beings to get water. So sometimes it becomes very hard. And on my far right, which is probably your far left, they come with very nice indigenous way of holding water. So that's just logs of wood, or especially acacia tree, and then they put sort of a basin and they put a cloth on it, and then the camels can drink water from it. So from that need, that's where now we try as government and other partners to support the communities in terms of what they need for their livestock and what they need for their human consumption. So the next slide is what we can do back home. So it's ideally there's more to water storage than just boreholes. Tanks are more preferred. You can see on my left, there's a mud thatched house, but it has a roof. So you just put gutters and then you put your tank and then you'll harvest your water. And then in Northeastern, they love to put the top left, that is in Mandera, they put tanks which harvest water from runoff and roofs. So they're called backyard, but it's ideally putting a tank that is dug under to harvest all the runoffs that are within. Of course, it will silt the silt away, sieve it, and then they will be able to have clean water. And that's probably 10,000 or more than 10,000. I think it's 20,000 capacity, and that takes them for quite some time. In the middle is what you call a sand dam. Across the dry lager, they just put a dam which goes across. It holds the sand and then they can dig it as the women are digging it on the right. It may look uncouth, but it's the best way for them because that water can be conserved for probably 6 or 7 months and they have water. Again, science, sand filters water, so you probably have clean water there. Some do that and put a tap, and then you can harvest water with your tank and use it for your greenhouse, for your vegetables, instead of using a borehole. So I'm about to end. This is also another type of storage that is called a cistern. And you can see the water boozer is literally coming to abstract water from there. So in very dry areas, instead of boreholes sometimes, this is what they use to collect all the water. And so the communities can draw water from here. And this is not charged. This they draw to use it for themselves and their animals. And then I've got 5 minutes. I hope I'm able to finish on time.
Oh, come on. We're not that strict. We took your 5 minutes in the beginning. So
Oh,
you're good.
fine. Thanks. Thanks. Yeah, I'm a soldier's daughter, so we really work with time. Thanks. So the best, again, what can you do for your community? This is Pokot. So you have beehives. That was in Nandi County, but basically you have beehives. You can either put them in a house, and the people from livestock support to establish apiaries. So you will get an expert from livestock because bee is a livestock to establish an apiary. But for the community groups now, in terms of value addition, you just don't want them to keep bees. You want to add value. So what happens is that you train them to keep the bees, select a public site in a community land, or someone gives his land and they work on a percentage of giving back. And then they have a centrifuge where they can process the honey and then now they sell. So from the beehives into the selling. So this is quite a good livelihood because you're connecting the bees, and you must have a forested place with flowers. You must have clean water, and then you must get something out of it through having a small factory. And then some are now packaging the bees. Packaging the honey, and some are just selling it locally. And it's good because it's sometimes we've seen most communities, it's easier when the market is within themselves. So you're able to sell and then, of course, plow back money to taking children to school or doing other activities that will generate income to the community.
We have two questions.
Yes.
We have 3 questions. The one, I don't know, that's still, you already answered it. It's about, aren't boreholes better aesthetically than tanks, and it takes less space and take less space? And then the same person also asks, who provides the centrifuge?
All right, so boreholes, it depends on what your needs are. If you want borehole for domestic, for example, if you want to drill a borehole just to supply water to your own house, what is the economic sense for it? You may have to look at that. And then if you are in a place where there's plenty of water, you can always harvest water. Tanks may not take a lot of space because you can raise your tanks. You don't have to put it down. You can also have an underground tank that you can still use the base to do other things within your compound. Okay. The centrifuge is, so these community groups usually develop proposals for funding. And so in the beekeeping proposal, we do the whole value chain. So they will request for the beehives, they'll be supported with the beehives, they'll be supported with equipment to start, and then they'll be supported with training in terms of beekeeping management and the production and also sales. So in such cases, it's the government who funds or the partner, and they also have a business plan on, are they making profit? Are they able to leverage on whatever other activities that they can complement this with? I hope that answers your question. So, concluding almost, on my next slide, apart from working with the government, I go around picking small projects and getting friends across the world, basically. So on my top left, it's a water filter. I went for some study in Netherlands. I met some friends, and then with a group of German youth, we provide water filters for community groups. It's not we've done about maybe 40 across communities within the lake. The program is almost coming to an end because now the fundraising, it's quite some business. And it was just from a small talk that we were able to get this. So what we do practically, me and my engineer colleague, as giving back to the community, we get community groups, sample the water quality, and then do the lab test and send it to our friends in Germany, who then manufacture the water filter and they are brought to Kenya. It's a very small project on the site, and the beauty is it's very manageable. To maintain the water filter, all you need to do is to put aqua tab or remove the filters, brush it off, and then have it. We have done it in some community groups and a few schools. And now we want to see if the program can transition more into rainwater harvesting, but for the very vulnerable communities to keep the children in school. And then in Samburu, top in the middle, I have friends who do beading. And because it's really a cultural practice, what happens is that I collect beads from them and sell. And basically is to keep the children in school, but also to support the children in getting better at making beads. So it's not really beads that are made very articulately because it's for the little children just to get the art of it. It's anyhow. So because they didn't want to engage the children in the bead making, they felt that they keep spoiling the beads. So I said, okay, fine, we can always just buy so that they're able to buy beads and then have them, because of course it's not in us sometimes when you go and there's child marriage and all that. Those are for other government sectors, but for us it's mainly water. So how do we give back to them? So it's in a small scale, but sometimes they move so we don't get beads, and then they come back to the shed and then they get the beads. And then top bottom in that nice dress, it's a group called Loisukut, where the men were the ones who are majorly gaining from the project. And so we decided, why not have a bead shed for them as a livelihood activity? And this was really good because it sort of was adopted by the other county governments in Samburu, where now they put up sheds for women to bead. And ideally, I just wear the dresses they give me for free, but I say, no, it goes back. And once I wear the dress and post on my social media, I have good friends like Dr. Caro, who actually was tailored for an exact dress like that one. The project has been there for 6 years and the women are very happy. On the top right is a place in Samburu, Maralal. It's at the top. They have a community conservancy. So ideally, I just help with the strategies on how to make it better and strategies on how to get them undertake other activities in Samburu. So this is just, as you say, how do you give back to communities when you go and see what they are doing? And in Samburu, it's very pretty because I think 6 months later, we are at the bottom of the pit where there's Pokot in Tangul Bay, where there's a liquor store run by a Luo woman. Yeah, so everywhere you go, you find all our relatives across. All right, as I finish, probably just 2 more slides. What inspires me? Ikigai. I ask myself every day, there's God who has granted me favor. There are people who have helped me across. There's family, of course, who was always very supportive. And then there's the responsibility. So I like looking at this thing every morning, every other day as I meditate. And sometimes, as you say, working for government is hard, but what is not hard? For me, it's more on, can I share what I have? And once I share what I have, it's normally very nice because it comes back 1,000-fold. And having been a committee member in Jowes, I have seen the greatness in partnership, in sharing what you have. And at a phone call, you ask, do you know this? In America, and I have a Chieng, I have Dama, and I have everybody else who would say, yes, I'm coming to the US. What do I bring? Do you have what? Like, so it's more on what you love, what's your passion, what's your mission, what are your needs, what's your vocation, what's your profession, and what are you good at? I'm very good at talking and eating, but I'm passionate about community and just being a good human being. And almost final is that there are gifts in life that are for free. So every day I pray that I wake up and watch a sunrise. And this is a sunrise from Kisumu. So sometimes there's sunrise from Nairobi that is gloomy, but at least it's still a sunrise. And then as I conclude, every day as the sun sets, I ask myself, what have I done for people and me? And am I being a good person in the world that God has given us for free? And that's the end of the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. That was really knowledgeful for me. There's so many things I didn't know. Before you go, do you have a couple of minutes where you could take additional questions if there's any questions, ladies,
Yes.
if you have? Yeah. Okay, ladies, if you have any other questions that you'd like Elizabeth to address while she's here with us, feel free to either raise your hands up or unmute your mic. I think we're all able to unmute and ask. Jackie, I see your hand up. You want to go first? Go ahead. Jackie, did you mean to put your hand up? I also see, I think that's Irene.
Oh. Hi. I was looking for my mic to unmute.
Okay.
Can you hear
Yeah,
me?
that's always a thing. The mic is always at the, if you're on your phone, the bottom left-hand side. Yeah, that little microphone. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, really, really good presentation, Elizabeth. That was amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
I
sister.
have learned a lot about you in that sense. A lot more about you. No, it's not a sister thing, but yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. It was very simplified in layman's language, and I think you're doing something marvelous. Inspiring women, empowering people in their local communities, and also, of course, what your profession is what's your profession again? Sociologist?
Your sister. Yes.
Great. No, thank you very much. That was wonderful.
It's always great
Thank
when
you,
your
Jackie.
sister.
And yes,
Go ahead.
thanks, Jackie. Jackie has done a lot. Every time I post where I am, she's always very encouraging with all the words. But the best thing is that she really gives back to society in terms of water resources. She's provided tanks, and now, yes, that's commendable, Jackie.
Thank you. Thank you.
That is so cool to have your very own sister support you like that. You know, they always say when somebody from your own surroundings, comes up and says something, that shows a lot, and we appreciate both of you. And Jackie, are you a member of Jowes? We'd like to welcome you to join us in
Thank
this
you very much.
amazing community of ours. We will
Thank
I will
you.
definitely get a hold of you and give you more information here in a little bit.
That'll be
But
amazing.
Okay,
Thank
sorry.
you so much. Right.
Uh-huh. Sorry, is that Irene who within the hand up? Jowes Sako is what I see. Karibu. Go ahead with your question.
Yeah, I have a question about water in communities and tanks and things like that. So does the government help? I actually have two questions. So one is, does the government help communities to actually build their own, dig their own boreholes and harvest water? And if they do, how do communities go around, making requests or just asking for boreholes? Or is it that, your MP, you have to be favorable, your ward has to be favorable to your MP? And is it a political um process, or is there like a way that you can go as website or something, an application that a community can go and apply to have a borehole drilled in their community? That's my first question. And the second one is, recently when I went home, I saw a lot of initiatives where they dug boreholes, but then water was sold to people. So people would go, they had water kiosks around. So instead of the normal streams, they're trying to have water kiosks. And I think mine was, is that better for us to dig? Is it an initiative to bring water closer to the people by digging those boreholes? And are we affecting our water basin in any way? And should we just go back to, streams and pumping the water from streams into, some sort of tank where people can come and fetch water from?
All right, thanks. So everybody wants to do boreholes now because now it's the need for borehole has increased, and I'm seeing counties, because they do the water services, they prefer boreholes. Again, if you see where a borehole has been drilled and there's a kiosk, it's because they do not get enough supply from the river, or the river is polluted, or they do not have enough conserved water. What the authority is saying, it's boreholes are good, yes, but can we protect our water sources? Because also those boreholes, they will dry. Again, most counties, through the MCAs, members of county assembly, the MCAs, they usually have county budgets, and when it comes to water, most of them drill boreholes. Of late, like a county like Bungoma, you can imagine there's a ward they want to drill boreholes in every ward, yet they have rivers. So sometimes we feel it's more of is it inconsistency or inconsiderate on catchment conservation? And many boreholes are really not good where you can be able to draw water from the river. Again, those boreholes where they drill and they provide water, they sell water, sometimes it's not sustainable. When the pump gets spoiled, sometimes there's a lot of mismanagement of funds that now you'll just have the communities going back to the river, which they should have protected before. I hope that answers your question. In terms of who does the boreholes, so it depends. You can have the government, of course, through those community groups who make proposals. Sometimes you have the county governments who've already planned on which boreholes they're going to drill. And then sometimes you have churches or individuals who want to construct boreholes to supply communities as a community service, or sometimes as a business. So it comes from various sources.
Irene, did she answer your
Yes.
question properly?
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Mhm. I see Akinyi Adoyo has a question for you, and then after that, Eva has a question. So go ahead, Akinyi.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Elizabeth. I learned a lot today. So I have two questions. The first one is for borehole permits. If someone initially extracts water using a bucket and then switches back to the pumping system that you mentioned, there won't be any punitive measures if they go back to get the required permit, correct? And then
Yes, okay.
oh no,
There
go
are
ahead.
penalties.
Ah,
Yeah, the penalties. But it will depend on where it is. They can always work out. Though the only is it a good thing? The only good thing now is that it's an online service, so it has cut off so many riffraffs who would get money from you and you don't get service. So it's easier when you have that, then you can always contact an office that is near you. I could give my contacts and then see what's the way forward for it. Of course, there are penalties, but they can always work out how to help in terms of payment. Do you pay once or do you stagger your payment?
oh, okay.
Yes. So the penalties now are a bit punitive than before to deter a lot of illegal obstructions.
Mm,
Yeah.
okay. All right. So my second question is, I know that you mentioned some international mandates. So after the recent discussions we've been having after this Gen Z revolutions, tumekuwa rada kabisa. So what assurances are there that our people remain at the center of every discussion? In other words, how confident are we that our resources are not being subjected to a new form of organization?
Really.
Yes, it's very basic. So this is the thing about Kenya. So we have so many regulations, but people don't take time to read. For example, you'd have someone given a county. So there's a county that is probably through the Kenya Forest Service issuing trees. So this is what happens. So it's free to issue trees, but you'll find a Kenyan coming to the Kenya Forest Service person and giving him probably 1,000 shillings, taking the trees, and then going, and then there's another middleman to again sell and resell. So for me, usually it's more on if you want to get service, or do you even know the budget that is within your county or sub county or your ward? Do you even know your leaders and what they do? And now it's very easy. For any government funding, it's supposed to be public. So I think we have left all the decision making and utilization of funds to the politicians. But in cases where communities come together and are aware when the budget is being developed, the activities they have, and being transparent on even issuing land for those projects, I've seen those communities really go far and hold everyone accountable to it. But then there are some communities who are a bit they've left everything to government. A case in point, you have some constituencies where you cannot just go there as an MP and do what you want. So for the longest time, they have water in check, they have schools, they have school feeding programs, and there's transparency. So I feel like and in Kenya, you have the Twitter space and everything. There's even an official government agency called Ombudsman where you can make complaints. Even me, I do complaints when I feel like Kenya Power has infringed on my electricity bills. Once you make the complaint, they actually refund your money. So it's more on being aware on what is happening within your space. Yes.
Thank you.
Does that answer you?
Yes, thank you.
So thank you again for that answering. I see Evelyn has a question next. Eva, go ahead.
Hey, ladies, thank you so much. That's a great presentation. A question came in my mind when you were talking about boreholes versus getting water from the river, right? And in my head,
Yes.
I was thinking, getting water from the river is so 18th century. Like, does that mean that we go back to like fetching water with a gulu and buckets, or is there infrastructure around getting water directly from the river as opposed to digging a borehole in, say, your compound?
Eva, sorry, I didn't get your question well. Eva?
We've lost Eva.
We've lost
Yeah.
Eva.
Yeah, I think
I wasn't sure. Was
she's
she
back. She's
asking
back.
about? Yes.
Yeah.
Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, I think my network was acting up. I was saying, is there infrastructure around getting water from the river as opposed to digging a borehole in your compound or whatever? Or are we talking about like going back to fetch water from the river with pots and buckets and stuff?
So different communities are at different levels. So if you want to pump water from the river and you're in the village, it means probably your neighbors are not able to get the water, and you may be the one getting water from the river to supply them. So that means you have economic capability of mechanizing that pumping from the river and infrastructure, developing the infrastructure to supply. But look at the communities who must, and that is the only way to go, especially probably in Nyanza around the lake. We still go back to the river to get the water. Reason being, not everybody can afford the infrastructure, and not all the water service providers are able to provide the water. And by the way, if you're supposed to supply, if you're drilling a borehole to supply water to the community, you must get permission from the water company, because they must give you an objection that they're not able to supply water for you to supply. So number one, it's very expensive to put up that infrastructure, and that's why we still have communities going to the river to draw water. Eva, is that fine?
Just maybe a follow-up question. So in terms of cost, would it be more, I guess, cost effective to drill a borehole or to put in the infrastructure for getting water from the river? I'm assuming from the river is more expensive.
Whichever way, even if you get it from the river, you still have to take it through treatment and then supply. So for us, and then look at our GDP and the income levels of the community. So you're looking at communities who must use water but are not able to afford water, and therefore for them it's for us to make sure that those rivers are clean and the water is clean, or they have a way they can filter the water to use it.
Additionally, Eva, because your question is very interesting, Diego has done a good job, Liz, because actually this is her forte. But we are talking about something we are calling surface water, and then the boreholes are groundwater. So when you use the hydrological lens, then it is more sustainable. It's good for the community to take care of the river and have water for a long time and ensure the quality is better than digging the borehole, which then you are affecting the water cycle. You know, for your children and grandchildren, you are minimizing. So there's also that aspect. Yeah, I hope that helps. Yes.
Okay. I'm thinking like just in terms of efficiency, to have women, I think in this day and age, still having to go fetch water from the river. It's just it sounds like not maybe the best use of their time. So if there's, a way to cost effectively get it to them, I understand that the borehole in the long run affects, water availability for the community. But I don't know. Yeah, I guess we'll take it offline. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That answers my question. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Eva. And Eva, sometimes when they do the water schemes, drawing water to supply, the women don't like it because that's their social forte, going to the river to hang out and then come back later. Yeah, it's like, it depends on where you are. Yeah.
Yes, that makes sense. Oh, my aunt was
Yes.
asking something about actually the water filter. You mentioned something about the water filters that you have, I guess, almost custom made in Germany, like
Yes.
Based on, I guess, the water quality and what they need to be filtering for, right? Is there any way possible to have your German partners teach that to, say, Kenyans on the ground so that that process can be done locally as opposed to having to import the filters? Or is it like technology that's what's the word I'm looking for? You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to say, like it's
I think Eva's network dropped off again, but normally she logs back on. Normally she logs back on immediately, so I don't know that she's going to log back in. As we wait for her to log back in, there she is. Go ahead.
All right, Eva.
Yeah, I was
no
done.
worries. We've been trying. I got the question. You were asking about if they can help the Kenyan manufacturers to develop the same water filter.
Yeah.
It's business in Kenya is hard. So we've tried, and we got frustrated and gave up, and we sort of wanted to have a foundation, and the cost of production here would be like 3/4 of what they're doing in Germany, and the businesses licenses are many. So we sort of said, for the communities not to lose out, let's have it as grant. We were thinking of having a foundation of it. It has not been possible, so that we have maybe master students, high school students come and do the water quality and have an exchange in Germany. But it has not been possible because it was at small scale. But the beauty is the government has some TVET. It's called the Technical Vocational Industries that the Germans have heavily invested in. And so we're looking at ways where can water be part of it, and then we see how we can progress it. But the business, it was really, really expensive. We tried exploring that.
That yeah.
Yeah.
I see.
All right.
I see thank you, Eva. I see Damaris has had her hand up for a while. Damaris, do you want to go ahead with your question? And maybe when Damaris finishes off, then we'll wrap up kind of officially. But we can still stay on for people who want to stay on. But let me let Damaris ask her question.
Thanks, Jackie. Thanks, Elizabeth. That was really, really great. My question is around digging of boreholes and the providers specifically. Is there licenses required of them before they can be allowed to undertake borehole digging? So that if me as a layman, I want a borehole, as I'm shopping for a provider, I'm asking them about what licenses they have. The way you'd ask a doctor or a lawyer, just to be sure they are in quote unquote compliance or they are up to speed. Or yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so every year they have the licensed drillers. So from the ministry website, they have them. And the again, corruption, how corruption checks in Kenya. The little devil tells you, just bring the rig, drill at night, and then we will sort the rest later. But before you drill, you have to get all the permits. First, you have to get authorization to drill, and then you must have carried out an hydrological assessment. And then if you do that, then they will be able to do the test pumping, and then they do the water quality of the borehole. And then these days they have what you call borehole cameras. They'll actually check to what depth did you drill as opposed to what the report said. So if you engage it professionally, then the licenses must be obtained. If you go the other way, then you get people who are drilling and have no paperwork for it. And that's why now, after some time, when the authority is doing enforcement and they get you, the penalty is quite heavy. So yes, the requirements are there, but as usual, some people ignore.
Thank you. I think that's good enough. At least we know we need to ask for that, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much again, Elizabeth, and thank you, ladies, for
Yes.
being here today. That was such an excellent presentation. I have a lot of kudos coming from the ladies, all of them, from all saying asante, and they're very impressed, and the session was very informative. Nelly Otieno says, thanks, Liz, for an informative session. Lots of learning and great stuff. Genevieve also said, thank you so very much. I see you talked to her also. In closing, to me, it almost looks like boreholes are kind of not, we're kind of being told, let's not dig boreholes just because of the length of time boreholes are going to stay for and how it infringes on our natural flow of water. And it sounds like the ministry or the government or people who know how water is made and all that good stuff. It sounds like they'd rather we take we catch water from rain, whatever it is, and using boreholes. And I want to segue this into what us as Jowes we are doing, and we didn't quite finish what we wanted to do. We wanted to we as a team wanted to bring this presentation in with we're looking at having a loan also for what are those things called? For tangi, basically.
Thanks.
So that
Yes.
us, yeah, so that ladies that we can look into getting tangis for us because it's something that's more sustainable. And with this talk also, I was hoping, and Elizabeth, you didn't touch on it, but when we were talking, doing normal we talked about how to wash our tangis and all that kind of good stuff.
Oh,
But I
yes,
know
yes, yes, yes.
time was not enough, and I just because of time, I will always kind of try and keep the official meeting to 1.5 hours at most. I just wanted to use this time to, if there's people who want to officially log on, I wanted to give them the opportunity, and I wanted to have said thank you for being here first of all, and also to give them the opportunity to leave and not feel bad about leaving if they want to leave. But we always have Mdomo therapy after the main education day, and I tell you, ladies, Mdomo therapy is where it happens. That's where we get all the extra real stuff that we need to hear about. So, Elizabeth, I don't know how much time you have tonight. Ladies, I don't know how much time you have, but if you do have time, after this official close, we can stay from Doma therapy and we can get into those nitty-bitty questions about water and how it affects us on our day-to-day, because that is what really, at least for me, those are the things, we got a good overview of what the official things are and how we are charged and all of that stuff. But now I can ask you, hey, Tanginacha, how do you recommend I wash it, So that's I hope can happen in the next Mdomo therapy. But before I get to that, if you have a burning question, again, I want to officially thank you, Elizabeth, for being here. You're one of our own. Ladies, you see how much quality people members we have, and how what a treasure we have within us that we don't see every day. So thank you again for taking time to be here with us today and spending your time for us at El Saco. Ladies, if you have something that you know is a wealth of knowledge that you can help the Saco with, get with me. My name's Jacqueline. I'm the vice chair. I'm education chair also. So if there's something that you think our ladies will benefit from, get with me so I can put you on the schedule to present for us again. And as you can see, what treasures that are just hiding in the underneath. Like Elizabeth, if she didn't speak up, I would not have known that we have such a treasure in the house. So definitely reach out to me or reach out to anybody who you know who can further this. And again, as I continue, I want to say thank you to the team. There's a great team behind us here in our leadership. So thank you, all our leadership, our chairs here, our secretaries. They're all kind of here. So thank you guys, ladies. In closing, I would like us to pray. If that's not a problem, do I have a volunteer again before I throw it back to Rosemary, who has become our unofficial pastor here to pray us in and pray us out? Any other volunteers to pray? Going. Rosemary, are you available to pray us out again? I guess she's not. So I'll go ahead and pray us out so that I can officially leave, let people leave if they want to leave. And then we are open for domotherapy for you. Father God, I just want to thank you for this day. Thank you for what we have heard today. Thank you for all the ladies and the families that are presented here before us. I pray that even as they sit here with us and as they get information, I pray it may be a blessing to their families. I pray a blessing over each and every one of them. I pray that you may meet each and every family at their point of need. You know exactly where they are. We pray that you bless them and bless them coming in and bless them as they go out. As those who go to sleep, I pray that you be watch over them, take care of them, and continue to watch over their lives and watch over their coming in and going out. I thank you again for this organization and for the Jowes ladies. I pray that you may be with them and be with us all as we continue. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much.
So asante again, Elizabeth. And ladies, officially, you could leave. Officially, if you want to turn your camera